There is clearly nothing more attractive than a woman who is just birthed to do exactly and whatever men have to say, whose entire existence gravitates around the sole and degrading benefit of men. What's up, Black Hat family? Today we're going to be reacting to something that I was made aware of recently. I personally thought this stuff pretty much died with Lauren Southern after it was pretty much linked to mass shootings and yeah. But apparently no, grifting as a conservative housewife in 2020 is still apparently a thing. Is still apparently something that is quite an industry, and apparently the new form of victimhood. Because you gotta love the fact how conservatives love to berate everyone for being a victim, but are so desperate to paint themselves out as victims in the current culture of people actually gaining a brain. So I don't want to bore you too long. Let's get straight into this one and do some commentary, because I know that's what you're here for.
Social media, celebrities, influencers, and YouTubers. So much of the time it feels like one worldview, one position is tolerated. Many of them don't say outright what their politics are. Many of them do. None of them need to, and none of them will say what I'm about to. I'm a conservative influencer.
So this is actually the new culture of conservatives now, painting out that they are the victim in an ideologically losing battle of ideas. Conservatives love to complain about the fact that they love diversity of ideas and that we should welcome racist, transphobic, bigoted, homophobic, Islamophobic, everything phobic that doesn't affect white Christendom into the conversation. Otherwise, if we don't, we're all snowflakes. But as soon as someone actually starts criticizing their point of view, suddenly the whole world is against conservatives. Guess why? Probably because conservatives have very shit ideals as human beings. I'm just putting that out there because I don't really get where they're getting this whole idea that they are somehow persecuted when they've spent the majority of history being the ones dictating morals and standards to the rest of society. This includes on segregation. This includes on homosexuality. This includes on women's rights. Can you imagine that? Telling other people who you cannot identify with just how they should live their lives? That's crazy. Not very democratic either. These are the guys who you'll find mostly talking about patriotism, being all American, and all of that weird other cult-like shit. So weird how being a patriot doesn't have anything to do with democracy.
Being a conservative woman in today's day and age is not easy. You'll be told that you have internalized misogyny. You'll be told that you don't care about other women's well-being. You'll be told that you aren't a real woman. But none of that is true. Conservative women are the backbone of American society. We prioritize marriage and children, support our husbands, and support our...
Irony, obviously, of this particular clip, and I'm assuming that her partner is of a Jewish descent there. Whether or not that is long-standing practicing, or whether or not that is, Jewish for sure, we don't know. It's the same as people who have Christian weddings all for the sake of demonstrating wealth, etc. But you get this a lot. You get a lot of women in particular who tend to fall into marriages with particularly conservative men and all of a sudden realize that they can have points of views. It's almost like beforehand they didn't actually have much of a personality or much of a political opinion. So it works perfectly in line for these men to actually indoctrinate women into their fold of thinking. And for the most part, this is conservative men to the T. Having a woman who is too opinionated is too much for them. Having a woman with her own self-esteem and aspirations is too much for them. Having a woman who defines herself by her own goals and accomplishments is just too much for them. So when she actually talks about it's so hard being a conservative woman, what she's actually saying is that it's actually hard to exist and be rewarded for it just for the sake of being a woman, which is hilarious because the particular life that she's looking towards comes with a lot of sacrifices. The sacrifices of having an opinion, the sacrifices of having a different opinion to your partner, the sacrifice of actually trying to accomplish something on your own, not marrying into wealth, not having to leverage your birthrights in order to keep someone around. There is so much that you have to deny as a person and as a woman and as an intellectual human being with history resources available to you just at the click of a button for you to actually have such a dumb opinion. This is why I don't date conservatives.
We teach our families the strength of women both inside the home and out. We help our husbands grow, not by obeying their every word, but by bolstering their strengths and tamping down their weaknesses. We live with values that encourage people to be better. We fight for what's right, even when the world tells us that everyone should do what they want, regardless of consequences. We stand hand in hand with men, not against them. And we shouldn't have to remain silent about our views, like I did. For years, you've been forgotten and left behind as magazines.
Just to the quick one. I'm not surprised that she's managed to stay silent for years on her own views, because she doesn't seem like someone who actually has any critical thinking to offer up for herself. Society is very open to having a discussion with various people of different ethnic backgrounds, religious influences, fascist regimes. This idea internally that conservatives have built up, that the world is persecuting them for their virtue, actually comes from the fact that conservatives have been classically known to support some of the most ridiculous, xenophobic, human rights abusing standards of life that have ever existed. So when she talks about conservative wives have done, or conservative wives are the backbone of, you need to realize that she's talking about an America in which segregation was a thing. Conservative women were one of the first women to make a big deal about abolishing segregation, being thoroughly the women against women's suffrage, understanding that the implications of women's suffrage was that women would actually have to start representing themselves in the workplace, marrying less for wealth, and actually trying to accomplish something for themselves. This became a major threat to women who were just used to marrying into wealth and not actually having to do much to sustain an existence. So I find it hilarious that the idea behind this whole narrative is that you're not a slave to your husband, you're actually a support to your husband. No, let's be real about it. You are nothing but a vessel in this particular transaction where heterosexuality is concerned. And that is the sheer history of it. This weird romanticization of what women's history has been like is the dangerous road in which conservative women try to educate their daughters into believing that society hasn't fashioned a sexist, misogynist, and absolutely discriminatory society which only benefits a select certain amount of people. And because they believe that they hold the monopoly and the power to be able to marry into these particular institutions, that everything is good for them. Well, as a liberal, I'm here to say that's good for you, but that doesn't have to be everyone else's existence. That doesn't have to be women's existence. That doesn't have to be black men's existence. That doesn't have to be people of color's existence. That doesn't have to be people of different sexualities' existence. Conservatives have an absolute contempt for everyone else's lifestyle because of the fact that it doesn't flatter and it doesn't affirm their own worldviews. And this is the sheer problem of conservatism and why it's losing such popularity as the time goes on. As older people start to die off and younger generations start to become the mass of society. Because guess what? Being a discriminatory bigot just isn't popular with humanity. Shock horror.
In movies decided you're outdated. You've been told that the best way to be a woman is to act more like a man.
You've got to love how all of those magazines were blonde white women.
You care about a child in her womb. You've been told that sleeping around is empowering, but waiting till marriage is ridiculous. You've been told that believing in God is passé. You've been silenced about your views, but not anymore. Let's take back the culture so women can be women. Let's talk about reclaiming your femininity. Let's talk about dating with purpose. Let's talk about finding balance in career and home life. Let's talk about being an awesome, loving wife, but also being the kind of wife who makes your husband a better man. Let's talk about how to dress fashionably and conservatively. Let's talk about how to do your makeup for a night at the opera, not a night at the club. Let's talk about life from a conservative perspective, and let's not be afraid to do it. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Please subscribe to my channel and blog if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell to get notified of all my new videos. Head over to my Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook and follow me there. Please head over to classicallyabbey.locals.com if you want to see more of this content and support my channel. And I'll see you guys in my next video.
And that's enough of that. Okay. America, I love you. Your creativity is unmatched. Your sportsmanship is absolutely out of this world. Your movie industry is one of the best that we've ever had and has inspired so much storytelling, narrative thinking, and critical thinking amongst certain societies. How is it that your education system is just not as extensive or inspired? I don't get it. It's like you have the makings of a absolutely liberal society, but you miss the ball 99.9999999999999% of the time. Because it seems that oftentimes you get women such as classically whatever, and you still have a base of simps that actually believe and buy this shit. I don't understand what makes a man manly about wanting a woman who basically serves his every whim. The fact is, the stupidity of this whole clip I could go into a whole tangent about, but we'll just stick to some of the superficial points. An example being that she talks about dressing conservatively and moderately. This has never ever been a mantra in which women conduct themselves. This has never been a choice. This has never been a conversation in which women control. This has never been a conversation in which has women's sole idea of themselves at the center. Dressing conservatively has always been for the sake of men. And this comes from, again, the Christian world, in which people found women's sexuality too much of a distraction, so they told the women to cover up. This is where the classical idea of covering up and dressing modestly comes from. So this is the stupidity of conservative women. They think that these narratives are actually them taking their own empowered view on what being a woman is to own the libs. But ultimately, all it does is serves men's self-esteem, particularly insecure conservative men who don't actually believe that their women have the capability to be, I don't know, honest, faithful. Hilariously, conservative men being some of the classically worst people to talk about fidelity. She talks about taking back femininity. Femininity is a concept created by men in order to tell women what is the right way of being a woman. This is why classically women who are conservative are completely sexually starved. Because of the fact that men for the longest while, up until the late 1800s, thought the clitoris wasn't the thing. Thought the clitoris had no value. Thought the clitoris was not relevant to sex at all. For my liberal audience, you already know, so I don't even need to explain to you. But for the simple audience who consider themselves conservatives, the clitoris is literally the hub of sexuality for women. It is the orgasm center for which women achieve their arousal, stimulation, and the majority of their orgasmic pleasure. So, Abby, darling, girl, slow down. You look like you don't have that much life experience. You don't look like you have that much actual critical thinking or personality for yourself. Slow down with this 40-year-old woman rhetoric about how you need to be X, Y, and Z to best flatter men's point of view. You haven't quite hit that road yet. And hopefully in this new world, your daughters and women much further down the generation will never even think this form of thinking was a thing. Because ultimately, being a conservative woman is being a slave to men. That is the sheer truth of the matter. No matter how much you want to paint women who have their own personality as manly, no matter how much you want to paint women who actually own their sexuality as God knows what, you call them behind closed doors, none of this will ever be more pathetic than the fact you thought this video was gonna bang. You thought this video was gonna bang for anyone other than insecure, frail men who cannot handle the fact that women have reclaimed equality for themselves, and women who have no aspirations, no ambitions. other than to serve as political pundits and talking parrots for insecure conservative Fox News InfoWars consuming 4chan type pathetic men. That is me done for Pussy Politics today. I'll see you on the next one. Stay sexy. Sex work is work.